Are you using OBS for your Zoom calls so you could add some graphics and you're looking to take it up to the next level? Well, did you know you can do that in PowerPoint? Which is something that I didn't think I would be saying because a few months ago, I was pretty against using PowerPoint for custom animations. And the reason is when you use PowerPoint, you can't actually export as a movie file with a transparent background. And that's still the case. However, I've learned a few more things, and if you are someone who is using OBS, you can actually remove the background using the Chroma Key filter. So that is what I'm going to show you today. We're actually going to do a build. So I will be showing you how to create a custom animated overlay like this one. We're going to recreate this in PowerPoint. We're going to export that into an animated overlay, bring it into OBS and remove the background. And there you have it. And I encourage you to give this a try and then actually get creative. If you see an animation that someone else has, try to make it. I think that's pretty exciting. Now, if you are new around here or you've never seen me before, my name is Kat and I help people to create professional and engaging online presentations. And this is one of those things that really stands out and gets people's attention. When you suddenly have an animation, especially in a Zoom call, people are not expecting it. And so that is something we want to talk about. That's what we're going to talk about today. We want to impress people on our calls with these custom graphics. Now, if you are here live, I know there are a few of you, welcome. I'm so glad you could join me. I would love to hear, have you ever made custom animations or overlays using PowerPoint before? I know this is a pain point for some people that I've spoken with who maybe don't have a Mac or they're not familiar with Keynote. I will just say I still prefer Keynote because at the end of the day, if you can export with a transparent background, it's better than having a software remove it because that's adding a filter. However, we got to do what we got to do and work with what we have. And I know many of you have said that you use PowerPoint regularly. So without further ado, let's pop over into PowerPoint. Now, I am using PowerPoint today on my Mac. However, if you are a Windows user, I have you covered. I've actually got my Dell hooked up and this is what it's going to look like. And because I want to show you the animations are slightly different when we are looking at the Windows PowerPoint versus looking at the Mac PowerPoint. So I am going to make sure that I cover both of those for you, but we're going to actually do the build out with the animations in my Mac version, just because it's easier for me. And I'm the one running this stream right now. All right. So with this PowerPoint right now, I have a blank slate open. And what I'm going to do is just change the layout. So I'm going to pop up here and I'm going to make this blank. Now that it's blank, we want to design out that entrance animation, that title, that lower third animation. And there are 3 components to the one that I've created. So 2 rectangles and some text. So first we are going to create a rectangle, and I actually like to drag it across even bigger than it needs to be. And if we zoom out a little bit, you can see that I've created a fairly long one. You could even make it a little bit longer. And this will be our first one. This is the color version that you want. And I am just going to change this. I'm going to make it a nice red, as you saw in that little demonstration. That's what I'd like to pick. And I want to say no outline. So now I want to position it where it's going to end up. So if you have seen any of my titles before, you'll know that the color ends up sort of over here. You get to pick where this goes because you are making this custom. And so now we want to have another rectangle that's the same height. And so I just copy. So you can Control C, Control V as a way to paste, or if you're on a Mac, Command. Now it's brought me over here. We are going to now bring this over and line this up. And this will actually be black. So now for shape fill, I turn it into a black rectangle. So if I click off of that, you will see I now have where that will end up with the 2 different colors. You can pick and customize your colors. I'll get into some of the rules you have to follow if you are using the OBS Chroma Key. Now we want to add some text. So we click on text box, and I like to put it in the middle of the screen and actually draw it here if you add a text box and click in the rectangle, it will actually join as part of the rectangle. And we actually want the text box to be a separate animation and not be combined with the rectangle. So let's say animated overlays in, we'll just do the short form, PowerPoint. And now this is where you get to pick what is the font you want. And I like, for now, let's keep it simple. I'm going to choose Helvetica and I'm going to make this, let's try 40 and we'll drag this over here. We can see the lines a little, it's very faint, but you can actually line this up and we're going to turn this white. And now we can see it a lot better and we can drag that over. You're going to put that where you want it to show up. So now we've actually created what's going to show up. And what I do personally for my titles each week is I just have my main file that I come into and I just change the text. All of the animation is already there and I just update the text every week. And then I have my new title. Everything is set up. I don't have to recreate all the animations each time. Okay, so now we're going to animate. And if you think about this, so what we are going to do is we have 3 components. You are going to have 3 entrance animations and 3 exit animations. So all 3 of those components are coming in and then all 3 of those components are leaving. And let's just take a look again at the title slide for today. You can see the color moves across followed by the black, and then you've got the words, they disappear, and then everything goes backwards in the reverse order. So we're going to do that. The first thing we want to do is click on the first shape we want to animate, which is going to be the color rectangle. And so we go over and hover over to animations, the little window that says animations. And this is going to be an entrance animation, which they're colored green for entrance. And we're using fly in. Now you're going to see it comes up from the bottom and that's not actually what we want. So you are going to open the animation pane. And there's an animation pane on the Mac and PC. The panes look different, which is why I will show you the different versions between the Mac and the PC. But having this pane is really, really helpful because this will allow us to make edits. So our first animation is this red rectangle, and we want to have it not fly up from the bottom. We want it to fly from the left, and then it'll come in from the left. And we also want to change the timing. Right now, the default for PowerPoint is very fast, which is ½ a second. So I actually want this to be 1 second in length. So we have it coming from the left and we have it 1 second. And this is the very first animation. So technically it will say start on click. When we export it, it will just automatically start playing. Okay, we've done that one. So now we want to click on the black rectangle and we are going to add an animation. So we go over here, same thing. We want to add a fly-in entrance animation, but this time we want it to come from the left again. And for this one, we also want it to be 1 second, but we want it to start actually with the previous one. So that's really important so that you can time when it's going to show up and that it's going to happen automatically. And I'm going to double check. Yes, we want it with the previous one. I made some notes so I wouldn't make mistakes and lead you astray today. All right, so now we've got our second one. And the third is we want the text to come in. And in this case, I'm using the entrance animation called dissolve. So let's do dissolve in. And I actually like to make this one a little bit faster. So there's no effect option of direction because it's just showing up where it is. But I like to keep this one at very fast so it shows up quickly. And for this one, we want to make sure that it happens after the previous. So we have our red rectangle comes in with the black one. So they're both coming across. And then we will have the text show up after they're both in place. So that's the first part, all 3 entrances. Now we want to make sure that they exit, but we want people to be able to read the title. So we will be building in a small delay. So now we want to click back on the red rectangle. And this time we are going to add an animation, which is to fly out. Again, it likes the bottom. So we are going to change this. We are going to say that it's going to be to the left is how it's going to fly out. And we want this to happen after the previous. So it'll happen after the last animation that we have, but we're actually going to add a 3-second delay onto it. And you can play around with the time. So maybe you find 3 seconds is a little bit long, or maybe depending on the title, you want it to be on there longer before it exits and disappears. So now we have to the left, after previous, and I want this to be 1 second again. All right, now we click on the black box again. I don't know why it jumped over there. And these look like they might be slightly misaligned, so we can fix that. Now we want also to have this one fly out. This one is going to be to the left. We want this to also be 1 second. I'm just gonna peek. Oh, actually, I made a mistake. I actually like, that's okay, we'll keep going. I usually like the text to disappear before the black disappears, but we can fix that. So now we want, going to the left, we want to start that with the previous, but we actually have to add the 3-second delay again. So it's like telling everything after the name is displayed, we want to all exit at 3 seconds. And then, so that looks good. And now we want to look at the text, and this one we're going to have disappear. And so to have it disappear, we want this to happen with the previous and that 3-second delay. So let's test this. We might have to make some tweaks, but if we click on the first one, we can say play from the first one and see what happens. But actually, I think this did there. Now it's aligned. So let's play this animation. So when you're looking at it, you can see, do I actually like how this is coming out? Is it a little bit like this one looks a little bit clunky to me. So let's actually take a look. Some of the things you can play around with. If you can see here, I know it's kind of small, but there are things like smooth end. You can try something like smooth end on these, and then we can play the difference. So let's go back to animation number 1. Let's play this again and take a look. Okay, got the 3-second delay and it goes away. So really what you are doing is all the little tweaks to figure out what do you like. Do you want it to have that smooth end? Do you want it to be a little bit faster or a little bit slower? But as you can see, we've created one pretty quickly. So now I want to show you the difference with the Windows version. So in Windows, your animation pane looks a little bit different. So here, they actually like to display things on a timeline. So at the bottom here, you'll see the seconds. And up here, you'll actually see this 3-second delay between those 3 entrance animations and those 3 exit animations. But I set them up with all of the exact same rules. Now, if you wanted to make any edits, you would simply click on this little drop down. And that right there is how you can get the effect options, the timing options. So here is where you would change the direction. That's one of the ways. Also the timing, you can say after the previous, this is where you would add the delay. So that's how you do it differently in the Windows version for anyone who is using Windows. And again, you can click on the very first one and say play from to see the example of how they come out. The other thing that you can do is you can actually, so what you can do is also play around with the length of the rectangles, because sometimes the longer the rectangle, the more movement has to happen in that 1 second. So that can also affect and alter how those animations come out. So I would encourage you to get creative. But now we just have created that. So did that look easy? Let me know if you're here. Do you think that's easy? Do you think that's something that you can do? I would love to know. But we need to change the background, because right now there is a white background, and that is not what we want if we are going to use the Chroma Key. So we're going to go back here, and the way that I like to change it is I actually just right click on the slide and you can select Format Background. So when you click Format Background, you will be able to, right now it's set to solid fill and it's white by default, but you can just change the color, and this is very similar on the Windows as well as the Mac. So I'm going to choose green. And if you are wondering, the answer is any green. The Chroma Key, if you set it to green, it's going to get rid of green. Even if you have a brand color. So my brand color is sort of like a teal, and it's got some green in it, and that green gets pulled out and it looks more like a blue. So even if you have a shape in there, that's something you have to be cautious of. And I'll show you how you can select a different color once you're actually applying the filter. And I see a question here. So let's see if we can pull up this. Are you able to loop this? Something like a news. I'm going to assume you mean ticker. So you can have something loop. So what you would want to do if you are repeating the same thing is when you pull in that animated overlay, and I can show you this, you're able to select whether or not you want the animation to loop. For example, the countdown timer has a circle going around. That is a really short video file and it's set to loop, and you can do that. So you would be able to repeat the loop of the movie like a ticker on your screen. So definitely. Or if you just want it to play once, you can just set it not to loop and it'll just play once. So we have set this background to green in this case, but you could pick a different color. And now we want to export. So when it comes to exporting, you will export, instead of save as, you're actually going to pick export. And when you have that, so it looks a little bit different, and I can show you the difference with the Windows version. Choose the file format. So MP4 or MOV are both movie files. So you can pick MP4. You want that good quality, so you want to pick the resolution, and it usually defaults to that. I am going to save this on I want this somewhere simple. Let's put it, I wanted to put it on my desktop, but this might be just as easy. Okay, so now we are going to export that. All right, we've exported it. Now I'm going to show you the example though of how to export. I haven't changed the background, but let's take a look on the PC. And with this one, you click export and there's an option called create a video. And when you create the video, so you want it to be that high quality, so that large file size. And then for seconds spent on each slide, this is where you have to pay attention to the length of your animation. So in my case, it's actually around 6 seconds. So I would bump it up to 6 seconds and then say create video. And that is how you would export when you are on a PC. And so we have now exported this. And now we want to bring this animation into OBS. If you are someone who's using Ecamm, like I'm using Ecamm right now to live stream, that means you have a Mac. If you have a Mac, I encourage you to use Keynote because of the transparent background. So this probably wouldn't apply, but maybe you are helping someone out who has a PC and you're making an animation for them in PowerPoint, the same principles would apply for you. Okay, so now let's pop over to OBS. So I have OBS open and you're probably going to see a little bit of a delay because I am feeding this through Ecamm, but bear with it. So I always like to set up in OBS a main camera scene. So I can always come back to the main camera, but have my animations on separate scenes. And if you have seen any of my demonstrations, you'll know that I like to simply say duplicate so that my camera is positioned the way that I want it. I don't have to reset the camera. And then I would give this a name related to what I'm doing. So in this one, it will be the title slide. There we go. Okay, so when we set this title slide, now we have my camera set up, but we want to bring in this animated overlay. There are a few ways you can do this. You can actually drag and drop the file, but in this case, I'm going to actually add a source, and this will be a media source because it is a movie. It's a new one, and so I'll call this the animated title. And then I go to my file to browse, and it should be right here. There we go. And this is where that question about looping comes in. So you can see there's an option when you add a file, you can set it to loop. And so this would be helpful if you are wanting to have something like a ticker or a countdown timer where you want it to repeat. The other options you have is show nothing when playback ends. Because of this animation, it's actually disappearing already. So that's already what's happening. But let's say that you wanted to show an animation and leave it on the screen, you would actually uncheck this and you would have it so that it still shows up after, and then you can just change your scene. So these look good to me. Let's say, okay. And now you can see, here's the animation, but you can't see me. And that's because we have not gotten to that next part yet. Now it disappeared after it played. And so I could set that to stay on the screen if I wanted to, but since the animation is going away, we don't want that. In OBS, if you ever want to replay an animation, there's this little circle, this replay circle here in the middle, right below my face. You can always click on that to see the animation again. So here, this is where we apply the filter. So what you can do is when it's on the screen, you can right click on it, but you can actually just click on the source until you see filters. So it's the second last option. When you click filter, now you will have options. If it's a video file, you'll have video, audio filters, and effects. If it's just a static overlay, because this works for static overlays as well, you have effect filters only. And this is where we want to go. So we click on add effect filter. You'll see all the different types of filter, and you go to Chroma Key, which is the second option. You can give it a name. Maybe you want to name it with the color that you're applying, but I'm just leaving it as Chroma Key. When that happens, you will actually see key color type, and you can select different colors. So the three main ones they already have are green, blue, and magenta. But if you were to click on custom, you can actually just enter the exact hex code that you want. And when it comes to choosing a color, you really just want to pick a color that does not exist at all in any of your graphics, because you do not want those colors to be altered. So that's what you're trying to think of when it comes to which chroma key you want to choose. And then we click close. So now when we repeat this, the green is gone. You see the custom animation, it plays, and then it disappears. So that is how you do it. I hope that you feel confident that you can do this, because really it is straightforward. It just takes step by step. You want to make sure that you are setting the background before you export it, have all of those animations tested the way that you want them, and then you are bringing it in to OBS. Now I see a question from Evan around how do you make the background transparent in Keynote. So that I do have an example of that in my creating custom graphics in Keynote video. But when you export as a movie file, you want to make sure that you are picking a custom option, and then you will export that to Apple ProRes 4444. I have a lot of programs running, so I'm not going to pull up Keynote right now, but I do have that in another video so you can see exactly how you can transport with a transparent background in Keynote. So I do have that available. Okay, so that is how you do it. It's really pretty impressive. One of the other things I'll mention is if you use a different program, for example, Canva. Some of the students who attended my workshop last week showed me some videos of some stuff they were playing around with. They took an animation from Canva that had a little green section, and they were able to just import that animation with the green portion using the chroma key. It was gone, and then they showed up in that animation, and it looked amazing. So there are other options. As soon as you know how to use the chroma key in OBS, really the sky's the limit. You can start to take colors, remove them, add them as overlays, and just have a lot of fun. And as I said, they stand out. Now, are there any other questions? So we've got a question here. How do you send from OBS to Zoom? Okay, great question. And that one is fairly easy. Let's go back to the OBS. So when you are in OBS, you see that there are controls over on the right side. I don't know where my mouse went. There we go. So this is the button that you want. So start virtual camera. Once you have started the virtual camera here, now when I open Zoom and I pick my camera, OBS Virtual Camera is going to be one of the options that I can pick. So instead of picking my traditional camera, I can pick OBS Virtual Camera. And there's a link actually in the description of this video of how to set up your virtual camera in Zoom using both Ecamm and OBS. So that is something that I also have available. Okay, I don't think I see any other questions right now. I just want to do a quick check. I see a few of you are excited, which is amazing because this really, really is fun. And if you are watching the replay, let me know in the comments, did you try this? I would love to know how you get creative. Are you watching maybe something on TV or another streamer and you think, I want to try that? And just get in there, get creative, and just give this a test. So it was really great. Thanks so much, everyone. And I'd love to know if adding the Chroma Key and adding these animated overlays takes your presentations to the next level and helps you stand out.